You ever feel the floor drop out from under you while you're still standing? That's what it felt like the day I opened our internal project tracker and saw my name stripped from a report I'd spent 2 weeks building. Same charts, same language, same insights. Only now it said, prepared by Keaton Hinshaw. No mention of me, no footnote, nothing. My name is Greg Dawson. I'm 53 years old and live in Columbus, Ohio. I'd been at Rockford Energy Solutions for just over 16 years when things started to turn sideways. It all started with Marla Hinshaw, the shiny new VP who walked in like she owned the damn building. Her first bold move was bringing in her son, Keaton, fresh-faced, cocky as hell, straight off some 6-month online program in business analytics. No real-world experience, no degree. But Marla said he had vision. They asked me to mentor him, show him how we do things. I should have smelled the setup then, but I played along, took him into meetings, walked him through our modeling tools, explained how to balance risk against investor pressure. The whole time, he barely looked up from his phone. No notes, no questions, just the occasional smirk and a cool got it. I told myself he'd fade out like all the other silver bullet hires we'd seen over the years. But 3 months later, he was walking around with a nameplate that said Senior Project Coordinator. No announcement, no email, just popped up one Monday like it was always there. That same week, I noticed one of my reports on market volatility had been repackaged under his name. Except now, it read like a sales brochure, my warnings edited out, language softened to make our strategy sound bulletproof. The kind of nonsense that gets investors hyped and project teams blindsided. Before we get deeper into this mess, quick note, while you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. I didn't say anything right away. Thought maybe it was a one-off mistake. So I pulled up the file history. That's when I saw it. Keaton's login had accessed my draft at midnight the night before it was submitted to the exec team. I printed out both versions, stapled them together, and dropped them on Marla's desk. She barely looked up. Keaton's just trying to streamline the message, she said. He's learning fast. Try to support him. Right there, I knew the game had changed. And not in my favor. 2 hours later, I walked into the weekly sync and saw Keaton at the head of the table, leading the presentation I'd put together. Marla sat beside him, nodding like he'd cracked cold fusion. I sat in the back, gripping the chair so tight my knuckles went white. The cut had already been made. I just hadn't felt the bleeding yet. 2 days later, we had the quarterly strategy session. Whole leadership team packed into the big conference room. Coffee, name tags, printed agendas like it was some kind of summit. Keaton stood up front in his slim-fit blazer, flipping through the slides I'd helped draft weeks earlier. Only he'd gutted all the cautionary notes, ripped out the parts that said, here's where we might get crushed if oil dips below 70 a barrel. Instead, he called it a period of explosive opportunity. When he clicked to the next slide and said, this pivot puts us ahead of the curve, I spoke up. Where's the volatility index data? I asked. The raw risk figures we flagged for Q3? He froze for a second, half smile still on his face, then turned to Marla like I'd farted in church. Before he could speak, she cut in. Maybe you're just having a hard time adapting to change, Greg. Just like that, in front of 15 people. Laughter. Not loud, but enough. A few smirks. I bit the inside of my cheek and stayed quiet the rest of the meeting. I knew the play. Make me look bitter. Make me look old. Over the next few weeks, the screw turned slowly. One morning, I searched for a client memo I'd logged the day before. Gone. I checked the shared drive backup. Nothing. 2 days after that, a meeting invite from the Westfield account team never hit my inbox. Later, I asked Jenna why I wasn't there. She looked confused. I sent it to you. It was on the invite list. I dug through spam, trash, filters. Nothing. That happened 3 more times in a month. Then the whispers started. Coming back from lunch, I heard 2 junior analysts near the break room. One said, he's been off lately, like checked out. The other replied, heard he got passed over again. Maybe he's just burned out. I didn't say a word, just walked past them, slow and steady, like I hadn't heard a thing. But inside, my gut twisted like a vice. A week later, I got an email from HR. Please come to room 5A at 3 p.m. today to discuss recent performance concerns. I showed up on time. A guy I'd never met before sat across from me with a file, said his name was Jeremy. No last name, no business card. He flipped through a few papers. We've received feedback about inconsistent performance and missed follow-ups. Just want to check in. From who? I asked. We can't disclose sources. But we take these flags seriously. I stared at him. Do you even know what I do here? He gave me that practiced corporate smile, the kind that says, "This meeting means nothing, but it still counts against you." That same week, I walked past the conference room and saw Keaton inside, flip-flops on, talking to one of the regional directors. On the wall behind him was a poster for the VP retreat in Aspen. I wasn't invited, he was. That's when I knew it wasn't just favoritism anymore. They were setting the stage to push me out. Every missed email, every vanished file, deliberate. They wanted me unstable, questioned, dismissed. And it was working. People were keeping their distance. Clients were starting to loop in Keaton directly, like I'd already been sidelined. I got home that Friday, tossed my keys in the dish, and just stood in the kitchen staring at the fridge. My wife walked in and asked, "Rough day?" I nodded but didn't speak. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. "No," I said. "Not yet." Because deep down, I already knew. Talking wouldn't fix it. This wasn't confusion. It was a setup. And I wasn't about to let them walk me out without a fight. That weekend, I bought a $100 audio recorder off Amazon. Tiny thing, fit in my pocket, clipped onto my keyring. I started carrying it everywhere, especially into any room where Marla or Keaton had the floor. I wasn't paranoid, not anymore. I was preparing for war. I also started saving everything. Email drafts, internal memos, time-stamped screenshots of shared drives before and after documents vanished. Even kept a physical notebook in my drawer with names, times, and summaries of every conversation that felt off. People started noticing I was quieter, more measured. I let them think I was spiraling. Easier that way. One night, around 8:30, I stayed late working on the Olsen proposal. It was a complicated pitch. Big investors, high risk, real consequences if we got it wrong. I'd rewritten it 3 times, making sure we showed the upside without hiding the landmines. Printer jammed after the second copy, so I went down the hall to the supply room. That's when I heard it, Keaton's voice, low, coming from the break room. "Don't worry, Mom," he said. I swapped the slides. Greg's version made it look too risky. "I got this." Silence for half a second. Then Marla. "Good. Throw him under the bus if you have to. He's already on thin ice." I froze. Recorder was already running in my pocket. My pulse jumped so hard I felt it in my jaw. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stood there like a statue, the soda machine humming behind me. They didn't know I was there, and I wasn't about to interrupt their little confession. After a minute, Keaton started complaining about how slow I was and how the old guard didn't understand modern business. Marla laughed, said, "Let him hang himself. He's practically doing it for us." I backed away down the hall, slow and silent, and made it to my office without them seeing me. As soon as I shut the door, I hit stop on the recorder. Game changer. That night, I copied the audio file to 3 separate drives, one on my home desktop, one on a USB I kept taped inside a drawer, and one in a cloud folder under a fake name. I transcribed the conversation word for word and printed 3 clean copies. No edits, no summaries, just the raw truth. Next morning, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in months, Sam Linwood. He was a senior engineer before Marla came in. Same department, same floor. Sharp guy. The kind of employee who got results without kissing ass. Management shoved him out last year under performance issues. Sounded familiar. I told him I had questions. He agreed to meet at a diner near the old refinery office. Over pancakes and bitter coffee, I laid it out. How Keaton had lifted my reports. How Marla was erasing digital trails. How the HR heat suddenly cranked up after I spoke out in the strategy session. Sam listened, eyes sharp, face unreadable. When I told him about the recording, he didn't even blink. "Same thing happened to me," he said. I pushed back on a safety forecast Marla's team doctored. Week later, I got written up for being combative. Month after that, I was out. "You ever record anything?" I asked. He shook his head. "Didn't think I needed to?" I did. Sam leaned forward. "You're not going to take this to HR, are you?" I laughed once, bitter and short. "They're part of the machine." He nodded. "Then you better aim higher and move fast." I left that meeting knowing 2 things for sure. I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't the first. After I left the diner with Sam, I didn't go home. I parked outside a CVS and sat in my truck for an hour, thinking. There was only one person I knew who could make real noise, someone Marla couldn't push around. Danielle Kershaw. She was one of Rockford's biggest private investors, controlled nearly 12% of the company's voting shares. I'd worked with her a few years back, before Marla showed up, and started scrubbing old alliances. Danielle wasn't flashy, but she didn't play games. She asked hard questions and expected real answers. I sent her a short message. Need 15 minutes. Critical, trust me. She replied less than an hour later. Tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Flannery's off Highway 8. That place was old school, linoleum floors, cracked booths, and a waitress who still called people on. I got there early, grabbed a corner table, and laid everything out. Folders, transcripts, copies of emails, printouts. Of project files before and after Keaton's edits. Danielle walked in 5 minutes late, in a trench coat and boots, no assistant. She didn't smile, just slid into the booth across from me and said, "Talk." I pushed the folders toward her and started from the top. Marla's arrival, Keaton's promotion, my reports getting scrubbed, the missing files, the whisper campaign, all of it. Then I pulled out the transcript and hit play on the audio. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just listened with that same unreadable look she always had in boardrooms. When it ended, she sat back, arms crossed. Why come to me? I didn't hesitate. Because HR reports to her. Legal's scared of her. And the CEO's either blind or complicit. I don't know who else to trust. Danielle stared at the table for a second, then looked up. You do realize what you're walking into? I'm already in it, I said. She nodded once. I'll make a few calls. Be ready tomorrow. That was it. She stood, gathered the folders, and left. No promises, no handshakes, just quiet power, walking out the door. I sat there long after she left, staring into my half-drunk coffee. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady for the first time in weeks. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Not a single hour. I laid on the couch with the TV on mute, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling every time a car passed outside. At 3:12 a.m., I got up, opened my laptop, and read through the transcript again. Marla's voice on the recording still made my stomach turn, but I didn't feel alone anymore. Someone with real weight had seen the truth. And if Danielle followed through, this war was about to go public. I showed up early the next morning, before the parking lot filled. The sky was that gray-blue color, right before sunrise, the kind that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. I sat in my car for a minute, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the auditorium lights through the windshield. Today was the all-hands, mandatory attendance, no excuses. Marla had planned it as her big show. One last act of dominance before locking me out of the system and rewriting history. She'd even cornered me in the elevator the day before. You'll either stand up tomorrow and apologize for jeopardizing the Olsen deal, she'd said, voice low and sharp, or you'll clear your office by noon. I didn't answer her then, just stared at the elevator door until it opened and walked out without a word. Now, standing backstage before the meeting, I could hear the hum of conversation, the low chatter of a few hundred employees who had no idea what was about to hit. My hands were sweating, but my head was clear. I'd loaded the audio files onto a flash drive, along with timestamps, slides, and a summary of every doctored report. I'd already emailed Danielle the same package, just in case. When the meeting started, Marla stood at the podium under the big Rockford Energy banner, all confidence and polish. She had on a red blazer, the kind of color you wear when you're planning to crush someone in public. Keaton sat front row, grinning like he'd already won. Marla began her speech, half company pep talk, half victory lap. We've seen incredible growth this quarter, she said. New strategies, fresh perspectives, bold leadership. Every sentence was a setup. Then came the hit. Before we move forward, she said, I need to address an internal issue. One of our senior analysts made critical errors in the Olsen proposal that nearly cost us the account. Greg, please stand. Every head turned. I stood slowly. Would you like to apologize? She said. Or should we consider your silence as acknowledgement of fault? My pulse pounded in my ears, but my voice came out steady. Actually, Marla, I'd like to share something with the team. I walked toward the front as whispers started spreading across the room. Marla frowned. Greg, this isn't the time. Sure it is, I said, plugging my flash drive into the projector laptop. Everyone deserves to hear the truth. The first clip played through the speakers, Keaton's voice clear as glass. Don't worry, Mom. I swapped the slides. Greg's version made it look too risky. Then Marla. Good. Throw him under the bus if you have to. He's already on thin ice. The room went dead silent. Keaton's grin vanished. Marla froze, color draining from her face. Someone in the back gasped. I didn't stop there. I flipped to the next slide. 2 versions of the Olsen report, side by side. Mine labeled original, his labeled submitted. Every edit highlighted. Every deleted warning circled in red. This, I said, pointing to the screen, is how they did it. They changed my work, lied to leadership, and pinned it on me. Marla tried to speak, but her voice cracked. This is absurd. Sit down, Danielle said, stepping out from the side door. Every head turned again. She wasn't alone. 2 men in suits followed her, compliance bureau reps, badges visible. The energy in the room shifted like a gust of wind. Danielle walked to the front and faced the crowd. We've been reviewing internal complaints and documentation, she said. It seems Mr. Dawson isn't the only one whose work was manipulated. One of the junior analysts near the aisle spoke up. My data reports disappeared last quarter after I questioned the projections. Then another voice. Same here. My memo got reassigned to Keaton. A ripple of voices spread across the room. People talking, nodding, finally saying out loud what everyone had been afraid to admit. Marla tried to regain control, shouting over the noise. Enough! This is a private personnel issue. Danielle cut her off. Not anymore. It's an integrity issue. The compliance reps started collecting statements. Marla's eyes darted between them, then to me. You think you've won? She hissed. I met her stare. No, Marla. I just stopped losing. By lunchtime, security escorted both her and Keaton out through the side doors. No applause, no spectacle, just quiet stares from the people they had been stepping on for months. I stood in the back, watching them go. My legs felt heavy, but my chest finally loosened. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the one on trial. 2 hours after Marla and Keaton were walked out, I got the call. Greg, boardroom. Now. I stepped in and immediately felt the weight in the air. Danielle was already seated. Legal counsel sat beside her, stone-faced. 2 board members flanked the far end, eyes sharp and cold. At the head of the table was our CEO, Alan Marks. He looked like a man staring down a firing squad. We need your help rebuilding credibility, he said, not even bothering to fake confidence. His voice was low, like someone trying not to choke. I didn't sit. I dropped the folder I was carrying onto the table. Then I need full access. Archives, internal comms, HR logs, all of it. No red tape. Alan nodded slowly. Granted, Danielle leaned forward. We'll make sure it's official. I didn't waste time. Within an hour, I was behind a locked door in the compliance suite with 2 secure drives and a login that gave me keys to the kingdom. What I found? It was worse than I expected. Marla hadn't just screwed me over. She'd rigged the whole damn system. Quarterly performance numbers, massaged to hide losses, projects she claimed credit for, built by teams she pushed out. There were six high-performing managers who'd either been demoted or quietly fired after performance issues appeared in their files. Same language, same patterns. One case was almost word for word what they'd done to me. She'd edited executive reviews too, buried complaints, redirected HR investigations. It was all right there. Timestamps, edit logs, IP addresses. She didn't even bother covering her tracks. And then I opened a folder labeled Personal Hold. Inside were email chains between her and Alan. Some financial, some deeply personal. Things that never should have been in a work inbox. That's when it hit me. She hadn't risen through merit or numbers. She'd ruled through leverage and fear. She knew who had skeletons and how to use them. That was her power. Not management, not vision, just dirt. I compiled everything into a report. 1 clean copy for Danielle, 1 for legal, and 1 encrypted backup. When I handed it over, Alan didn't say a word, just stared at the table like it might swallow him whole. Danielle spoke first. We want you to take interim control of analytics, get the department clean again. I didn't agree right away. I looked around the room, at the board members, at Alan, then back to Danielle. Only under 1 condition, I said. I want full authority to clean house. No interference, no shields. If someone helped her, looked the other way, covered for her, I don't care what title they have. They go. Danielle didn't blink. Done. Alan opened his mouth like he wanted to push back, but nothing came out. He just nodded quietly. They handed me a temporary badge with executive clearance. The moment I stepped out of that room, I felt the shift. People in the hallway looked up, confused. Some looked away. Others watched me like they weren't sure what side I was on. But I didn't care. I had what I needed. And now, it was my turn to drag every skeleton into the light. 3 days into my new role, I got the message. Block number, no subject. Just a single line. Meet me, one time, across the street, 8 a.m., Marla. It was dumb to go, and I knew it. But curiosity has teeth, and mine had sunk in deep. Next morning, I walked into the coffee shop across from our building right at 8. She was already there, corner booth, sunglasses on, dark coat, like she was waiting for a spy handoff. She looked rough, Makeup didn't hide the bags under her eyes. Hair pulled back like she hadn't washed it in days. But her posture, still sharp, still calculating. I sat down, didn't order anything, didn't say a word. She leaned in, voice low. "Help my son." I blinked once. "Excuse me?" Keaton didn't know. He was just following direction. I told him what to change, what to say. Say it was a misunderstanding. Help him land somewhere. You can even say I manipulated the whole thing, which I did. I stared at her, dead silent. "I'll give you everything," she went on. "Emails, docs showing the board knew about the false numbers, some of them months ago, way before you came to Danielle." Still, I didn't speak. Her voice dropped lower. "You think they'll protect you forever?" she said. "They're already watching you, waiting for you to trip. You're just a temporary fix. You think they'll let you stay?" I stood up. She didn't stop me, just leaned back, lips pressed tight, like she'd already moved on to plan B. I walked out without replying. Back at the office, I took the stairs to clear my head. Marla's words bounced around in my skull, sticky and sharp. Part of me wanted to believe she was bluffing. Part of me knew better. I stepped into the analytics floor and headed to my office. Ella from IT was waiting outside the door, arms crossed, flash drive in hand. "You'll want to see this," she said, handing it to me. "What is it?" "Something we pulled off a few senior machines, yours included. Surveillance tools, keystroke loggers, remote access ports, installed months ago. Trace back to Marla's admin credentials." My stomach dropped. "She still had remote access?" "She did," Ella said. "We shut it down. Legal already knows." I walked straight to the compliance office, dropped the drive on the table, and made sure they added it to the master report. Her access logs, the software signatures, the time stamps. That was her last shot. Dig up dirt, plant something, flip the power back her way. But she didn't get the chance. She'd burned every bridge, even the ones she built herself. The boardroom was dead quiet when I plugged in the drive. Every seat was filled. Board members, legal, Danielle, and 2 regulatory reps in dark suits. No coffee, no idle chatter, just eyes waiting for the hammer to fall. I didn't warm them up. I went straight in. "These are the real numbers," I said, flipping through the slides. "These are the doctored reports Marla pushed up the chain. And here," I tapped the screen, "is proof of the surveillance software she installed on senior staff machines." A few people shifted in their seats. Alan Marks, the CEO, looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. "This wasn't a one-time failure," I said, voice steady. "This was structural rot." Danielle nodded once. The reps took notes. I dropped 2 folders on the table. Option 1, this rebuilds analytics from scratch. Clean hires, full transparency, outside review. Option 2 goes straight to external auditors if you decide to play dumb again. 3 board members didn't wait. They slid their nameplates forward, stood, and walked out. No speeches, just gone. Alan cleared his throat. "I'll be stepping back, taking a leave, effective immediately." No one stopped him. Danielle looked at me. "We need a transition task force, someone to lead ethics and structure reforms." I didn't flinch. "Fine, but no immunity. If someone helped bury this, they go down with it." She agreed. I collected my folder and headed for the door. As I passed the glass wall outside the boardroom, I saw Keaton in a cubicle, packing a box. His eyes stayed low. He didn't look up. I kept walking. Outside, the fall wind hit me like a wake-up slap. Danielle caught up a minute later. "You made a mess," she said. "A necessary one. So now what?" I looked her in the eye. "Now?" She smiled. "Now you run the show. Clean it up." 3 months later, I sat in Marla's old chair. Same office, new locks. I didn't hang pictures, didn't bring in plants, didn't pretend I earned it through charm or politics. I got that office because someone had to stop people like her from ever getting close to power again. My revenge wasn't firing back. It wasn't the public shaming or the walk of shame. It was sitting in her chair with full authority, making sure no one like her ever ran this company again.